How sound encodes the cycles of matter. A comprehensive lecture on the phase language model. Introduction. What if language is not merely a historical accident? What if words are not arbitrary labels inherited from forgotten ancestors, but traces of deeper structural relationships embedded within reality itself? For centuries, linguistics has largely operated under the assumption that language evolves through descent. Languages split, migrate, diversify, and transform. Words are treated as historical artifacts whose meanings are determined by convention and whose origins are sought in older forms. The phase language model invites us to consider a different possibility. Suppose language is not fundamentally historical but structural. Suppose beneath the apparent diversity of tongues there exists a deeper grammar of states, transitions, oscillations, and cycles. Suppose sounds themselves participate in a symbolic architecture that mirrors the organization of matter, energy, and transformation. In this view, language becomes more than communication. It becomes a map of becoming. Chapter 1. The four fundamental states. At the foundation of the model stand four primary consonantal states. H represents dispersion. It corresponds to gas, atmosphere, expansion, openness, uncertainty, and probability. H is the domain of clouds, diffusion, breath, possibility, and spreading fields. L represents coherence. It corresponds to liquid continuity, flow, connectedness, waves, and sustained movement. L is the principle of continuity and transmission. R represents excitation. It corresponds to plasma, charge, ignition, interaction, catalytic transformation, and energetic activation. T or D represents localization. It corresponds to solid matter, crystallization, stabilization, boundaries, particles, and realized structure. Together these states form a complete cycle. Dispersion, coherence, excitation, localization, a universe condensed into four symbolic phases. Chapter 2. From probability to reality. The model becomes especially interesting when interpreted through a modern physical lens. H can be viewed as a probability cloud. L is coherent wave structure. R is interaction. D is localized actuality. The sequence resembles a journey from possibility to manifestation. A probability field becomes coherent. Coherence encounters interaction. Interaction generates localization. The abstract becomes concrete. The potential becomes actual. The field becomes event. Whether interpreted literally or metaphorically, the sequence possesses remarkable conceptual elegance. Chapter 3. Oscillation fields. The model does not treat consonants as isolated entities. Meaning emerges through relationships. Double consonant clusters become oscillation fields. HL represents the permeability between gas and liquid. Clouds condensing. Water evaporating. Order emerging from dispersion and dissolving back into it. HR represents the dance between gas and plasma. Ionization. Electrical activity. Energetic excitation within a dispersed medium. HT represents a dramatic leap between extremes. Dispersion and localization. Cloud and crystal. Possibility and realization. LR represents ignition. Coherence becoming energized. LT represents adaptation. Freezing and melting. The conversion between fluidity and structure. RT represents energetic crystallization. Lightning striking earth. Heat forging form. Energy becoming matter. Every pair forms a field of tension. Language becomes thermodynamics expressed through sound. Chapter 4. Resonance chambers. Triple consonant structures create higher-order systems. These are not sequences. They are resonance chambers. HLR excludes solidity. Therefore it resembles storms, turbulence, volatility, and dynamic systems lacking fixed stabilization. HLT excludes excitation. It resembles ecological cycles, rivers, climates, and naturally balanced systems. HRT excludes coherence. It resembles explosions, lightning, sudden discharge, and rapid transformation. LRT excludes dispersion. It resembles magma chambers, stellar interiors, planetary cores, and deep transformative environments. Each triple forms a triangular geometry of interaction. The missing state helps define the identity of the whole system. Chapter 5. Vowels and pressure. Consonants create structure. Vowels create modulation. Within the model, vowels do not alter the fundamental architecture. Instead, they regulate intensity. They function as pressure controls, amplitude controls, energetic adjustments. The consonants build the machine. The vowels regulate the power flowing through it. Chapter 6. The mystery of wave and particle. Perhaps the most intriguing relationship appears between L and D. L represents coherence. D represents localization. The movement from L to D resembles wave collapse. A distributed pattern becomes a localized event. A field becomes a particle. A possibility becomes an occurrence. The reverse movement from D to L resembles re-expansion. Localization dissolving into continuity. Particle returning to field. Whether or not this reflects actual quantum processes is secondary. The symbolic correspondence itself is striking. Chapter 7. Operator consonants. Not every consonant belongs to the phase system. Some act as operators. V serves as a useful example. Rather than representing a state of matter, it functions as a vector. A connector. A pathway. A force of insertion. Operator consonants define movement through the system rather than states within it. They create trajectories. Chapter 8. Words as dynamic paths. This leads to the central insight of the entire model. Words are not objects. Words are paths. Consider the symbolic reading of DOVAD. Solid, field, vector, field, solid. Rather than a static label, the word becomes a circuit. A movement, a journey through states. Meaning emerges from transformation itself. The word becomes a map. Chapter 9. The Tree of Resonance. Traditional linguistics speaks of language trees. Languages branch from older languages. Dialect becomes language. Language becomes family. The phase language model introduces a different tree. A resonance tree. Instead of historical branching, structural branching occurs. Single states generate oscillations. Oscillations generate resonance systems. Resonance systems generate increasingly complex pathways. Language grows like a living crystal. Not through ancestry alone but through combinations of structural possibilities. Chapter 10. Language as topology. The ultimate conclusion of the model is profound. Language is not symbolic reference. Language is dynamic topology. Words encode trajectories through energetic landscapes. Consonants define states. Clusters define tensions. Triples define chambers. Vowels define pressure. Operators define pathways. Meaning emerges from the interaction of all of these simultaneously. Language becomes a geometry of transformation. A thermodynamics of sound. A topology of becoming. Conclusion. Whether one regards the phase language model as physics, philosophy, linguistics, symbolic ontology, or an exploratory thought experiment, its value lies in the questions it asks. Can sound carry structural meaning? Can words be understood as processes rather than labels? Can language mirror the same cycles that govern matter, energy, and transformation? Perhaps the answers remain unknown. Yet the model invites us to look at language differently. Not as a museum of frozen artifacts. Not as a collection of arbitrary symbols. But as a living system of oscillations, resonances, and pathways. In that vision, every word becomes a journey. Every sound becomes a phase. Every sentence becomes a flow of transformations. And language itself becomes a map of reality continuously becoming itself.